Today we'll be discussing F.W. de Klerk and the Nobel Peace Prize. We have decided to disagree that F.W. de Klerk did not deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. The end of apartheid in South Africa marked a pivotal moment in history, with key figures playing significant roles in this process. Among them, F.W. de Klerk, who served as state president during a critical period, and Nelson Mandela, a prominent leader in the fight against apartheid. However, there are varying opinions about their roles and actions in ending apartheid, and whether de Klerk deserved the Nobel Peace Prize he was awarded. This presentation will critically examine de Klerk's and Mandela's roles in ending apartheid, and ultimately take a stance on the decision to award de Klerk with the Nobel Peace Prize. By exploring these perspectives, we can gain a deeper understanding of the complications surrounding the end of apartheid in South Africa.
De Klerk's contribution to ending apartheid. I apologize for the pain and indignity that apartheid has brought to the persons of color in South Africa. These were the words of an 85-year-old de Klerk dying of cancer. Many thought that de Klerk was the man who ended apartheid, but several South Africans felt that this apology came too late, and his efforts were minimal and for the wrong reasons. Nelson Mandela stated in his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, Mr. de Klerk was by no means the great emancipator. Mandela further stated that de Klerk's intentions behind ending apartheid were mainly to ensure the future and safety of the Afrikaner people. According to many South Africans, de Klerk's actions to create a post-apartheid country were purely self-motivated. It was his way of escaping being questioned and punished for the many acts of brutality that were carried out under the apartheid rule. In my opinion, Mr. de Klerk did not deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. People who are awarded this award usually spend their entire lives dedicated towards fighting for freedom, peace, equality, and democracy. Mr. de Klerk did no such thing. In fact, he spent most of his life enjoying the benefits of apartheid. He, along with others during the apartheid ruling, were responsible for the pain and suffering of many South Africans. Through the vast amount of research available, it is clear to see that the reasons behind Mr. de Klerk's decision to abolish apartheid was not out of concern for people of color. His reasons were purely selfish. By being hailed a hero who put an end to apartheid, he was able to control what happened to himself and his followers. This included ensuring their financial security. He was also able to avoid persecution for his crimes against humanity. Therefore, I say again, Mr. de Klerk did not deserve to share the award with Mr. Mandela, whose entire life was dedicated to fighting for freedom.
Mandela's role in ending an apartheid. Nelson Mandela's role in ending an apartheid was multifaceted and transformative. Mandela became a prominent leader of the African National Congress. His activism involved peaceful protests, strikes, and civil disobedience to challenge apartheid and highlight the injustices faced by Black South Africans. Mandela advocated for a non-violent and inclusive approach to achieve justice and healing in South Africa. He displayed qualities of compassion, forgiveness, humility, and a strong commitment to reconciliation. After his release from prison, he adopted a neutral political stance. Manga also states that Mandela worked very closely with de Klerk, which was unexpected by many. However, when Mandela was released from prison, he felt that the only way forward for South Africa was encouraging the blacks and whites to collaborate.
F.W. de Klerk remembered the conflict legacy in South Africa. Some white South Africans considered his efforts to be abolished apartheid as betrayal, and many blamed him for violence against Black South Africans and the anti-apartheid activists while he was in power. The transformation has a heavy price. In South Africa alone, political violence claimed the lives of more than 3,000 people in 1993 alone. As Mr. de Klerk noted in his Nobel talk, he reminded the Nobel audience that he and Mr. Mandela continued to be political rivals with significant differences. Yet they would process, being there is no other way to peace and prosperity for the people of our nation. Mr. de Klerk met in secret with Mr. Nelson Mandela. De Klerk claimed he was confident in his ability to do business with this man, but not always. Mr. de Klerk would continue to support what his National Party had previously declared to be aimed of apartheid, the separate development of white and black South Africans. Despite his participation in the country's change, in reality, apartheid compelled millions of the country's black majority into ostensibly independent homelands, while white minority controlled the major of South African's territory. Black slums were established on the outskirts of the white communities. Interracial relationships were made illegal and families were torn apart as a result of apartheid. In my opinion, Mr. F.W. de Klerk did not observe the Nobel Prize award, even though he claimed to put an end to apartheid. He did not. He still supported his national party, continued with what aimed to be a part of apartheid.
Mandela's struggle to end the apartheid. Mandela was sentenced to 5 years in prison for inciting workers to strike. The trial was set to take place in April 1964 on charges and attempting to overthrow the state. At the time of the judgment, Mandela was writing his final paper with London University for the law course he was studying. Mandela, being a brave man, fought for his right. He told the courtroom that his words sounded revolutionary because the white man fears democracy in a majority African nation. The government felt threatened by Mandela's overpowering confidence. Mandela and other political parties were found guilty and imprisoned to almost 3 decades for his fight against white minority rule. Mandela and other political democratic fighters were later flown from Pretoria to be placed in the isolated South Africa's maximum security Robben Island prison. Mandela was then sentenced to 27 years in prison.
The state the country was in before the end of apartheid. In South Africa, the country was in a very unstable state before the end of apartheid. Let's go back to 1921. The South African Communist Party was founded in 1921. This party was banned then in 1950 because it took part in many anti-apartheid activity acts that were very dangerous. They participated in Umkhonto weSizwe, which is called Spear the Nation, which was a very violent act in apartheid. But this party was the pillar of the African National Congress Party. If we go forward to the 1960s, we see that the Soviet Union becomes more central in ending apartheid. They encouraged international countries to sanction South Africa. They provided financial, military, and intellectual support from the beginning of the 1960s. And they provided weapons and military training with the support of different countries supplying the ANC weapons and people being trained to fight for freedom. This could have resulted in a civil war where the white minority would have lost. This could have been a large reason why the president at the time, F.W. de Klerk, decided to comply with the ANC to transfer to a democratic South Africa. In conclusion, F.W. de Klerk did not deserve to share the Nobel Peace Prize because he didn't struggle his whole life like Mandela. He only compromised because of the pressure that was put on him, not for the people that were suffering. He only apologized when he was 85 years old, very late. Thank you.